trauma thread. What's something you saw firsthand in life that you wish you could unsee? I mean things that really stained your mind. I have seen Ophanum when I was waking up. Completely shattered my mind, and I mean it literally. It force-burned itself into my retina and brain. Ever since then, I keep having panic attacks because I randomly get visions of space and its magnitude is crushing me apart. I took Buddhism very seriously after that. I was on meds for 6 months, and they killed my libido. But the panic attacks came back even stronger. I have lost fear from every human suffering, but I gained the highest one, and that is from the universe itself. I have gotten a little better with surrender meditation, but still, it didn't eradicate my fear. I do not know why it keeps torturing me. I saw something in the form of a child at the foot of my bed. I wake up, and I feel absolute terror. I look at the foot of my bed and see what looks like a partially decomposed boy, standing still, and staring at me in almost the Bigfoot pose. Sort of like I am sneaking but standing still mid-step because I may have been spotted type of stance. I think I have to be imagining it, so I reach over and turn the lights on without looking away. And he's still there. After maybe 30 seconds, his face misshapes. His eyes and mouth open wide, and he disappears. Only time I ever screamed in fear. Sometimes the memory comes back up, and just thinking about it scares me so much. It makes my ears ring. I have absolutely no idea what that was. Back 20 years ago, I was in medical school, and during my OB/GYN rotation, I was reassigned to a doctor that took me as a last-minute fill-in because my original preceptor was ill. I thought it would be a standard rotation of births and pelvic exams, but he did more than that. During my first week, we did several abortions, and when they do it, you get the fetus on ultrasound and inject the amniotic sac with strong saline solution, all while you have the fetus on the monitor screen. Seeing it flail for a few seconds and then go still, then having it razored and suctioned out was pretty mind-blowing. I'm not for or against it, but it really shook me. I could have not participated in it, but I stayed there to not make waves. Probably some friends from the past showing me a video on how to drive someone insane while I was high. As the techniques and tricks were explained, I noticed everything weird that had been happening at work or around the friend group for the past couple of weeks, leading up to that point. It seemed as if everyone was onto me. Loads of people seemed to be involved. In the workplace, I was given a heads up that 2 guys will try to mess with me until I quit. Received multiple calls a day from different numbers of someone just breathing and not saying anything. It was as if everyone tried to fuck with me in every possible way. I could only describe it as spiritual warfare. After some time, I quit. Later on, I saw a girl that I was together with cheat on me. The psychiatrist I went to for prior drug problems convinced me that these were hallucinations. I thought that the only way out was being admitted to a psych ward. Months later, I asked them why they showed me the video, to which one of them replied that no such video was ever shown. Some of those people have told me that you just show your weak spots and everyone takes advantage of that. Once something similar like that started to happen again about a year ago, one of them posted MK Ultra documents on socials. I am pretty sure that I have cracked how they do spiritual attacks. It's out in the open anyway. Wouldn't say that this has stained my mind, but rather opened my eyes. I doubt that anything has stained my mind. Not even seeing my left leg and half of my hip being almost ripped off after a truck drove over my back. I once had a boyfriend who would talk like this. He would randomly get very aggressive and violent, and then follow up getting insanely sad and regretful of his behavior. It hurt me very much to leave him. I hope he's either dead or happy now, and not making any more people suffer. As a kid, I watched a man fall headfirst onto concrete from a second-store Mardi Gras float. Saw everything. Getting whacked 21 times with a paddle for fraternity hazing. Sleeping in a 4x5 box on a concrete floor in a cold basement huddled up with 3 other pledge bros for a week, using a brick as a pillow, while also wearing an onion necklace where you had to take big bites of raw onion on command. Eating a disgusting mixture of noodles cooked in bong water with cat food, human pubes, sardines, and some other stuff mixed in, for Hell Week hazing. Watching a pledge master kill a rat with his bare hands by smashing it against the table. Being made to believe that we had to eat human feces blindfolded before having a delicious brownie stuffed into your mouth instead. Watching my dad get straight cathed in the cancer center because he was bloated with too much piss. Watching the vaccine rip through his cancer-ridden body while still following mask mandate protocols. Watching the incompetence of palliative care and oncology doctors during the pandemic. Watching a cancer-ridden little boy play catch with his dad in the atrium of the hospital. Watching my dad almost die of sepsis before going to the hospital, where he spent a month in an intubulated coma while they figured shit out. Picking up my dead dog off the street who froze to death because he wandered off and was really old. I probably have more, but those are the main ones. Watched for probably 2 months my dad's legs dying and rotting off of his body. The pain he was in was immense, and he let everybody know. Still haunts me years later. I was sitting on the toilet taking a shit last year. Master bedroom, bathroom, door to the bedroom was open. I look up from my phone to the bedroom, and I see a shadow figure made of smoke step hunched over in the doorway. I just stared at it as it seemed to be facing and looking at me. Whole thing was like a minute, and then it faded into smoke and disappeared. I was really worried that I was having some kind of schizophrenic episode. I was really stressed and sleep deprived because of work as well. I have no idea what it was. I found out my uncle had passed away around the same time. Not sure if it's related. The figure was much smaller than him, but god damn, I still think about it, and I have no explanation. Just wiped my ass and accepted that I would never tell anyone. Found my dad's dead body when I was 12. I thought he was asleep at first, and tried waking him up, but he was cold and purple, and rigor mortis had begun setting in. I don't think I can narrow it down to any one specific event. I, at least to my conscious memory, have never seen any live leak tear shit like some fellows in this thread. Early childhood, I have a few vivid ones. My early childhood was abusive, openly, and in some ways, at that time as an impressionable child, some of my father's unsavory behavior rubbed off. All I remember is I said something to my mother, and she up and left me, alone in the house, staring out the window, wondering what I, as a child who didn't know any better, had done that was so terrible to make my mom leave at the time. I think that was the most alone I've ever been in my life. I can't recount how long she was gone. Could have been 10 or 30 minutes, hours, I don't know. But I remember. I don't know. Maybe that sudden and shocking isolation impacted how I see human relationships or some shit. It was a long time ago now. Seeing her die of cancer was certainly an experience too. I've never forgotten her screams of help in the middle of the night. I don't really think of myself as a traumatized person. I've taken many steps to move on from that. Wallowing in self-pity accomplishes nothing, and more or less, the best quote-unquote therapy has been attempting to salvage knowledge from my experiences in order to be better than my prior self. The best I can do is keep working, loving my wives, honoring the gods, and keep ruthlessly moving forward. A tree only has the space with which it can crowd another one out of. That's based as fuck. I could tell you about the mundane stuff, like putting my dog down, but I think you guys would rather hear about the racing incidences. For context, I'm an amateur race car driver in the Midwest, United States. The first bad thing I saw was a day or two after high school. We were out driving around in the country when one of us decided to run a stop sign. He had his head taken off by a low-slung tractor trailer when his convertible drove underneath it. The car kept driving for a bit until it hit a ditch. We all assumed he lost control and hit the ditch, and only realized he was dead when we found his headless body bleeding all over the interior of the car. His head was still in the intersection. We drove right by it and never noticed it was there. The second real bad incident was during a vintage car weekend. A Ferrari V12's throttle got stuck wide open while it was in the pits, and it was revving its tits off. It revved for about 30 seconds until it violently disassembled itself with some pieces of it, I assume part of one of the rods, shot out and pierced the guy's hand and stomach. His screams weren't nearly as loud as the engine blowing, but to me, they sounded even louder. He survived, but I never saw him at that track again. Another weekend, some kid's hand got taken off in a bad go-kart accident. Kid was screaming bloody murder, and his mother was inconsolable. She actually started punching and biting at people, and one of the marshals cold-cocked her, and she hit her head on the ground and ended up with a concussion. In 2019, I was involved in a rallying accident, where I ended up upside down, and on fire. All I really remember is the crash itself and the smell of gas, and then the heat. I occasionally get nightmares about it. That all being said, I still enjoy cars and race when I can. I'm just a lot more cautious now than I used to be. I watched my cousin kill a guy. He was defending me, but then the guy kicked my cousin in the balls and he just stopped trying to restrain him. I watched my cousin grapple him, lift him up, and slam him head first in the pavement. Blood sprayed out from his forehead and he just went limp. After maybe 90 seconds of stillness, without a twitch, he takes in this big shuddering breath, tries to speak, looks me in the eyes, exhales, and falls limp again. 10 years later, and I still think about it almost daily. Drunks breaking into my home with bats when I was little. On the flip side, they were pussies and abandoned one of their own when my household fought back. The one that couldn't escape the house got beaten pretty bad, and the ones that did were chased and beaten by the neighbors. Myself on autopilot. Broken English, sorry. When I was 14, the group of friends I had decided to try Floripondio, and that shit disconnected myself, and for a whole day, I could watch me from outside, like if I was other people. My facial expressions, my posture, the way I sit, how I talk, everything. Shit was scary. I thought I was going to disappear, and from that day on, I got overly conscious of what I'm doing, even when I'm alone. And also, I keep a mirror at all times to make sure that I am me. I was normal. I remember how it felt to be normal. Something feels wrong since then, but doctors say that I'm fine, and my family just kinda gave up on me. 15 fucking years, I have been living like a paranoid weirdo. Does someone know what I'm talking about, or how do I fix it? Be me. New nurse in school. First clinical rotation at UTMC Trauma Ortho Acute Care floor. Guy in room next to nurse's station. 25-year-old who was running from the cops. Had drugs in his car. As he wrecks, pulls out sawed-off shotgun, tilts head back, and pulls. Fast forward to present. Me seeing him. Stitches from his neck running in an S pattern, up over his face and over his head. He's alive and conscious. No mouth, no nose, no eyes. One ear, the right one. Putrid stench coming from the room, a mix of his tracheostomy and the gangrene of rotting flesh on his face. Can only shake his head to communicate. That face one finished my degree anyways. Never saw anything anywhere near that bad again, even 7 years into the field. Well, my mom had come to the conclusion that she was dying from the taxes that she took on her body and would utilize the same conversational tones and phrases that she would when she first got into alcoholism, and play it up into an even more cheerful tone and beg for me to sit by her for hours while she drank beer after beer. At least 10 or more nights a month for about a year and a half, and she eventually got to the point of a near-complete psych break. She would beg for reassurance on things I could and can have no way of verifying, and would just get progressively more sad when I couldn't adequately address it now, whether it was because I was going through my own stuff or whatever. But to me, it slowly formed into oh shit moments of basically, oh no, we as a species are fucked. We no longer live in a world where our brains can individualize and become mindful enough, while remaining grounded enough to learn it from here, which means eternal suffering and confusion is ensured at times, actually being backed up by my mother's comments. You know what's even scarier than that? Run-on sentences. When I first got my driver's license, I saw a dude on a motorcycle get ripped to shreds trying to weave through traffic on the highway coming to town. Shit was so surreal. It was like seeing someone get gibbed in a video game. Just pieces of flesh and motorcycle blasted all over the pavement. Traffic slowed to a stop and people started getting out of the cars to see what had happened up close. I remember rolling by and just seeing a severed hand inside of a motorcycle glove, just sitting there on the asphalt, still gripping a piece of the handlebar. Suffice to say, I have never wanted to touch a motorcycle since. I've also come across so many fucked up things on the internet I wish I had never seen. There's a reason I will never visit the dark web again. Mental hospital stories. Post your mental hospital/psych ward experiences. The worst thing about psych wards is the fucking nurses. There is virtually zero oversight, and they extract entertainment from their mind-numbing 12-hour shifts, which they will complain about, by torturing patients. I speak from experience. Ask me anything. Okay, nobody ever fucking believes me, man, but shit. This shit is real. I was never into shitty fetish stuff. Always straight as a fucking board, man. Happened to me when I was more or less young and kinda good looking. At least, better looking than now. That might explain why she chose me. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So, one time, I got a bacterial lung infection and had to be put into a hospital. They treated me with IV antibiotics and took blood samples every 10 to 12 hours to check if the stuff is working or not. So, with all the IVs and blood work, a nurse had to stick a needle into my vein almost every few hours to change the IV or to take some blood or give me that saline water bag thing, etc. Every single nurse in that hospital did the stick needle into vein thing absolutely painlessly because they probably did this a billion times. But there was this one nurse, a small blonde girl I was stuck with over the weekend. She had 2 shifts, one after another, who yanked the needle, seemingly on purpose, when she was changing it. Since the needle was in a vein, blood started spilling out. And, dude, that girl froze up, staring at the little blood fountain pumping out. She was just looking at the blood going down my arm, like a statue. And she had those crazy fuck me eyes as she did. Like she was looking at something that turned her on, man. Then she snapped out of it and wiped my arm, stopped the blood, and got really apologetic and sad, almost teary-eyed. I said that it was okay, and then I told her that I'm so bored lying down all the time that this was the most exciting thing that happened to me all week. Especially that part when she just looked at my blood flowing and did nothing. When she heard that, she stopped her whole, "I'm so very sorry" shtick and was like, "Yeah? You liked it, huh? Ooh woo." And smiled before going to see another patient in another room. She didn't actually say ooh woo, but you get it. Okay, I just realized OP wanted mental hospital stories, but fuck it. I'll finish my tale anyways, you friends. Next time that weird chick came to change my needle, she did it completely painlessly, just like every other nurse did before. But then, her hand still on the needle in my vein, she just looked me in the eye, questioningly. Like she wasn't saying anything, but I knew she was asking for permission to bleed me a little again. So I was like, do it, lol. And she fucking yanked that needle so hard. Blood literally came out in a tiny fountain, pumping up into the air a fraction before spilling over my forearm. She closed the little wound with her fingers, no gloves, and just held them there, and just sat on my bed, frozen, breathless, just looking at the blood between her fingers. And the weirdest shit is, I didn't feel pain this time. I was too sick to get a hard-on, but I felt like all warm inside, like butterflies and shit. It was the closest to a sexual experience without having sex that I've ever been in. Then she put her other hand on my face and I guess petted me like a dog. Then she stopped the bleeding and went to see others again. This happened 3 more times, just like described, but she sat in my bed and once on my fucking lap. And then her shift was over. And after a day or so with normal nurses, I kinda sobered up and started thinking, what the fuck was that shit even? Why did I enjoy it? What the fuck was she? I got released, and I never looked back. But I saw her in my dreams a few times. Got sent to a dual diagnosis after being sectioned. I used to be a raging heroin addict, and after an overdose, I got sent. There was this one lady in her 30s that would wear different wigs and had a different personality for each wig. She was an absolute loon. At one point, she was laying on the ground across a hallway, blocking people from walking by, and acting all possessed. Had to be restrained and ended up leaving or getting transferred somewhere else the next day. I'm an EMT in private EMS, and frequently transport pink-slipped/suicidal patients from ERs to psych facilities. One day after dropping off my PT, one of the staff who appeared friendly was letting us out. Every door is locked going in and out. I wanted to confirm my suspicion that most of my PTs that I encounter are either demon-oppressed or demon-possessed. So I asked him in a joking tone if he has ever seen weird spooky stuff on the security cameras. He said, "Hell yes, we see shadows and other stuff all the time." So, yeah, basically all this psychology and behavioral science shit is pretty much useless because they don't have the proper tools to solve the problem. Not even that, they all fail to see the true problem and don't acknowledge the existence of demonic spirits. This will have horrible consequences for as long as this problem exists. That has to be the stupidest fucking post I've ever read. Be me, borderline personality disorder, and quote-unquote transient psychosis. Held for 2 weeks inpatient. One tweaker threatened to steal my really nice sunglasses. I was allowed to have them because of photophobia. One alcohol detox lady said she was seeing zombie children at the ends of long hallways. 19-year-old prostitute arrives, and her pimp managed to smuggle drugs to her during visitation. Full-on schizo lady arrived. She wandered around all night, going into other people's rooms. One day, I wake up early and go to rec room. Schizo lady walks in with only a towel and stares at me for 10+ minutes. Flashes me. Decent tits. Rumor spreading that she was 100% sane when her boyfriend dropped her off. Crazy how fast you can lose your mind. One homeless woman showed up and described a war on streets at night between Mexican and black gangs. I give her my bra, some clothes, and extra food, and I wished her good luck when she leaves. Last day, Redditor arrives after assaulting people in a normal hospital while claiming to be Jesus Christ. He starts talking to me, says I need to help him with social media for his new cult because I'm attractive to him. It's just basic bitch panpsychism new age word salad. Nod along pretending his shit is as profound as he thinks it is. Fun times. Nothing too XE occurred, but it's wild seeing such broken people. I wish I could have helped them. I met a girl that was about 20 years old and had been in the ward for 3 years. When I met her, she spontaneously started taking off her clothes and crying. I later found out that she had been abducted, gang attacked, and left for dead on a high school trip to Europe. It broke her completely. Was institutionalized in a foreign country for 3 months. It has fueled my nightmares for the past half-decade. Saw all sorts of shit due to lack of medical professional care and negligence. One of my lowest moments was having a shower without a hose and having to sit on the floor with the water running out of a hole in the wall with low pressure whilst being watched by a female nurse. Lady on a disconnected phone calling Obama to thank him personally. Old black dude called Ghost, who doesn't share, and doesn't feel like fucking sharing, so fuck off. Crazed Hispanic guy comes in begging for cigarettes, and almost gets his shit crushed by Ghost for being annoying. My roommate is a mute 17-year-old kid, doesn't talk to me, and is afraid of me stealing his only possession, which is a pair of autistic Velcro sneakers. Spent 2 days in a detox before heading there. Had to shit like crazy due to the toilets being open in the jail. Go to take a big shit. Roommate stays in the bedroom next to the bathroom to make sure his shoes don't get stolen. Door to bathroom is flimsy Velcro pads so you can't hang yourself. Drop the nastiest, biggest, smelliest turd ever with an ear and nose shot of this mute autistic. Sounds like a belly flop contest at a frat party. Wipe and say, "What's up?" to him when I'm done. Was fun. I was in a bunch of ex-military with PTSD and they took me in and treated me like a brother. Camaraderie like nothing I had ever seen up to that point. My brother was locked in the loony bin. Some confirmed things he told me, and I witnessed a few. Staff all look at each other like they're talking with their eyes, trying to communicate and signal to each other without letting you know. Cult-like leadership and behavior of the staff and management. Staff there took his blood every day. No good reason for this. Possible offering to demons or just sadism. He was kept at times in a padded cell. Again, no reasonable justification for this. Staff would often wake him up in his sleep and shine lights and torches into his eyes, which seems more like psychological torture. He was hit multiple occasions with long white sticks, possibly made of plastic or rubber. He was always covered in bruises. There was only one nice nurse there, and she was also the only black one. They offered him to go for a walk, but they only let him walk down a corridor in a straitjacket, and then restrained him again. Staff and handlers would use taser cattle prod things to discipline people. Now, he isn't even a real human being. He doesn't have thoughts of his own, whereas before, he used to be very creative, and now he's just a slave who has to take meds every day. I don't trust those places. They are evil, and only bad people work there. This was only about 10 years ago that this happened too. I know the UK equivalent of MK Ultra took place not too far away, at Aston Hall in Derbyshire, but I don't think that is an isolated incident either. You mean literally any county jail experiences? State hospital wards will know what I'm talking about. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Hey, Mr. CO, can you come out after nurse lady comes in with meds? Also, when is Black Man Commissary Man coming? Is it today? Times 40 within 1 hour. Tell that fat bitch I know he's spitting in my food. He can't serve my food because I know he's a homosexual. I'm figuring out about everyone who was in this block. You're dead, finger gun, bang, I shot you, you're fucking dead. Can I come out with X house? Is a sex offender that other sex offenders would murder, but has the brain function of a toddler. Does the most random whack-ass shit at any given moment, regardless of my presence. I fucking hate it here, and I drink constantly. Contracting, here I come. Guy sucking a dick of another guy, and drinking water from the toilet brush plastic thing. Same guy also stuck the toilet brush in his ass. 3 or 4 incoherent babbling guys. One heavily sedated guy for 1 day. Kept drooling the whole day due to the meds. We had to haul his ass, but it was fixed quickly. Arsonist insisting that he would burn everything, again. Aggressive ex-army guy that was slowly getting more aggressive. Oh, we had that too. Guy with OCD who could pretty much only speak in references to boomer rock music. Black son of a crackhead who called himself Buddha. Really nice guy, surprisingly. What do you mean surprisingly? He calls himself Buddha. Old belligerent lady that kept shitting all over herself, but didn't have a change of clothes. Formerly religious girl who got hooked on all sorts of drugs and decided to suddenly be religious again. Total bro alcoholic who was friends with all the staff because of how often he'd been there. Newborn mom worried about being evil since she tried to kill herself shortly after giving birth. Vietnam vet that kissed a 19-year-old prostitute and called the police saying that he was there against his will. Most people hated him, but that was always nice. He told me his favorite song was What a Wonderful World, and how he hadn't ever seen his grandson because his daughter hates him. I'm a late 30s male. I was early 20s at the time. I spent 2 weeks in a psych ward in the early 2010s due to a psychotic episode. It was quite the trip. Long ass story as to how I ended up there, but I was suffering from an array of different delusions. One of which was that I could break televisions with my mind. While I was being processed, one of the medical works asked me jokingly, "Are you the one that's been turning all of our TVs blue?" That was consistent with my delusion. When I broke TVs, the screen would be blue, no matter what channel you turned it to. Anyways, they had me get in a wheelchair, and a lady who pretty much had the exact same proportions as the pacifier demon took me up to my room. They processed me, locked my shoes and clothes in a cabinet in my room, and sent me to bed for the night. I was having none of it, not really fully understanding what was going on, so I got up, broke into the cabinet for my stuff, and got dressed. I snuck out into the hallways and started looking for an exit. There was no exit. A squad of male nurses chased me back to my room and shot me in the ass with something. It knocked me out for over 24 hours, and I can remember only bits and pieces from an entire missing day. Once I finally came to and settled in, I started to devise a plan for how I was going to get out of there. They gave me a patient's rights pamphlet when I was checked in, and I read the whole thing and discovered that I could just request a release form. I tried to get one from the front desk, but they wouldn't give it to me. I had been taken there by the police, so it was involuntary. One of the doctors on the ward took me aside and said that if I attempted to check myself out, that he would go before a judge and have me legally declared insane. Needless to say, I immediately left that plan behind. It was at this point that I started to make friends. One of the people on the ward, a young Asian man who got there shortly after I did, claimed to have special powers. I'm not sure if he was fucking with me, but he was good with numerology and could get one of the girls on the ward to look at him from across the room on command without doing or saying anything. What he was doing appeared to be quote-unquote real, i.e., there was no gimmick or planned agreement between him and this other girl. They barely even spoke to each other. He was also educated in numerology. Him, myself, and this other dude ended up with our own little clique. And one night, while we were hanging out, he added up all of our names and demonstrated that all three of us had the exact same numeric values. That was an interesting synchronicity. I'm gonna stop there, but if there's any interest, I'll tell the rest of the story up until the day that I got out. Me and another girl were viewing Superbad in a psych ward, both on suicide watch. One of the doctors said we couldn't watch a movie with drug use, and he switched to a channel showing Forrest Gump, and it was at the scene where his girlfriend tries to kill herself. Also, apparently they tied someone to a bed and refused to let them leave, unless they were medicated, and they were tied up for so long that they soiled themselves. I got 5150'd and they said I have to piss in a cup and then let them take my blood. I told them no, I have rights, you can't just take my body. They said, yes, we can. A big cop came in and said we're going to chain you to this bed and hold you down, stick a catheter up your dick, and forcefully take your blood if you don't comply. When I realized that I had no rights and they were going to take what they wanted no matter what, I cried. Later, it became a game of acting as normal as possible. On the outside of the mental hospital, you can act weird and it's fine because everyone assumes you're sane, but on the inside, everyone just assumes you are insane. So, one misstep, one strange thing, no matter how small, just confirms their diagnosis of how insane you are. They look at you like you're an animal. On the outside, we pretend people have rights that can't be violated, but on the inside, you have no rights. I tried to make small talk with all the orderlies and doctors as much as I could, hoping that if I just developed relationships with them, they might look at me as more human instead of viewing me as a piece of meat. I am never going back. The psychiatrist said, "This isn't like jail. We can hold you here forever. We are psychiatrists. We can do that. I would much rather go to prison. In prison, you have some rights. In the hospital, they decide that you are sick, and they have to treat you, so they force you to submit to whatever fucked up things they want to do to you. No one comes out the same way they went in. A piece of me died that day." I've been in a psych unit a few times over the years. Mostly, they're boring. I'll share a few of the more interesting people that I met in them. Guy in his mid-30s, but looked 60, was a tweaker. During meth psychosis, he got jealous of all the young people with piercings and etc., and decided to upstage them all. Drilled a hole into his own skull. Step Bro dubs him Drillbit Taylor. Another guy, supposedly a Yale dropout, was apprehended after dousing himself in gasoline and threatening to light it up. Constantly spastic, and annoying to be honest. Got some outside time. He pointed at bugs flying past, saying that they were famous politicians and etc. Points at a dragonfly. "That's Obama!" Tells me I've been slain in battle, and this is Valhalla. Usually he's kept separate from the other patients because he was so disruptive. Meet a former Marine. Guy constantly paces around his room and the ward, talking as loud as he can. And then I went to the Pentagon to preach against Trump, etc., etc. Another dude is a male to female trans pre-op. Says he was raised by this millionaire businessman father, to be the next leader of a satanic cult, was beaten, assaulted, and worse. Now, he's trans and has 31 personalities, some of them quote-unquote demonic. Would be talking to him in the middle of a sentence. He would pause and say, "Oh, here's another one," and that other personality would just take over. I couldn't really tell a difference. I was in a foreign country dating a girl with BPD while working an abusive job. I actually loved her, but dealing with a head case and awful work drove me toward a mental breakdown. She convinced me that I had bipolar or whatever, so she took me to a mental hospital. I visited there to get meds for several months, but eventually, I began thinking that I was not crazy and was only fucked up because of working for assholes and managing an unstable woman. On my last day there, I saw a few patients looking at me. They were regulars, a bit loopy, and as they looked at me, they said, "Why is he here? He looks so nice." And it dawned on me that, yeah, they're right. Why the fuck am I here? I'm still grounded, just sad. Never went back. Threw away my Ativan and other garbage. Wish I could buy those loops a nice meal and give them a hug. Side story unrelated to hospitals. I eventually left the country and broke up with that girl, which was a bit of a nightmare. But I eventually went back and made amends with her because I did provoke her by seeing women on the side during the worst of her mental abuse. We talked and really cleared our pain, and I swear, I saw these bright translucent orbs floating around us. One of the most moving and beautiful experiences of my life. We loved each other, but clearly did not fit. But to end on good terms after all that happened had me realize the importance and power of forgiveness. Went about a year ago. Work at a loony bin in East Palm Beach, Florida. Thought my food was being poisoned. Have cousin take me to loony bin in the middle of the night. Can't get in because I work there. Have to go to a different one. Meet most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Blonde, skinny, beautiful eyes, batshit crazy. Name's Alice. We instantly love each other. Start holding hands, spend all of our time together. Watch Family Guy. At the same time, we think of the same delusion that we were supposed to be together, to have a child that will be the next Christ. Going to have sex to make the next Messiah. Get caught in her room when I'm just about to fuck her. They separate us. Lost her contact information, or it was stolen, in order to prevent Armageddon. I am still really fucked up about it, and I wish I could see her again. I've not gone on dates because of how bad I still love her. Dad tries to kill me. Call the cops. Get kicked out. Put myself in the mental hospital. Thought they would put me on meds. The doctor says it doesn't make sense why my parents would do that. He orders DNA tests on me and my mom and dad. They weren't my real mom and dad. This all happened on my 26th birthday. Be me, around 18, get drunk as fuck. Beginnings of alcoholism. Friend wants to let me and his girlfriend stay at my dad's place while he's out of town so they can bang. At first, say, yeah, and this is where my memory stops. Change my mind. Try to force him outside by tricking him and shutting the door. He pushed the door. I knock over a bookshelf because drunk. Get angry because now I'm fucked. Break even more stuff. Grab knife. Go to friend's house. Break car window with handle of knife. Ow, now my hand hurts. Drop knife. This woke up friend's stepdad. He comes at me with an aluminum extension pole. Turns around just in time to see him. And this is where my memories return. Despite being almost blacked out, catch the pole as he swings it towards my head. No recollection of anything that happened. Why the fuck are you trying to hit me with that shit? Are you trying to fucking kill me? Get on my knees and bow my head. If that's what you want to do, fucking kill me. Fucking kill me, motherfucker. He looks horrified. I leave. Find friend. Vague sense that I want to avoid my dad's house. Me and friend talk for a while. His mom comes out and talks with us. See cop lights down the street. Me and friend both run through the neighbors' yards and fields and shit. A whole bunch of blurry shit ensues and ends with him dropping me off at my mom's house. As soon as I climb up to my second-story window, about 5 cops round the corner. Climb to the top of the roof. Tell them I'll fucking jump if they don't fuck off. Tell them I'll jump if they don't promise they won't arrest me. 5150 me instead. Think I threatened a cop's life? After he admitted this, to which he gave me a softly worded warning of, don't fucking say that again. Saw a 45-year-old black man jerk off. Got out the next day. The window I broke wasn't even my friend's car. Lol. Dad kicked me out. And this was my first of many experiences. Have to go to hospital on Sunday morning. Don't know what it's for, but apparently something urgent. Wait in hospital for 2 hours. Doctor's still not there. Walk home. Think it's just going to get rescheduled. They wanted me there for suicidality. Police come get me from my home. Now back at hospital with 2 police officers keeping me there. Doctor finally comes. Speaks like 2 minutes at most with me. And just sends me to a mental ward. Bruh. Ward is small and empty except for me and the 8 workers on me. Play board games with them for a few days while they ask questions about me and try to frame me for being a psychopath. I told my mom to not worry when she cried, and that I knew how to act in there. She was scared I would yell or push the workers or something, and I would never get home. So, I try to calm her. Workers think that this is some mega baller psychopath threatening move. What the fuck? Minus 5 days from my summer. Last August for 2 weeks. Crisis men's ward. Basically, suicidal people. Mostly homeless guys. Had a veteran quarter where they stuck to themselves outside of meals. I had a fantastic time, and legit found some solid insight against my suicidal tendencies, but anyway, people that I've met. P. Young kid, early 20s, possibly teen. Introduced himself as Krishna and Vishnu, but mostly skulked around ignoring everyone. But we would eyeball each other sometimes. Had a great subtle sense of humor though, but in a charming autistic way. He would paint most of the time in the rec room. I wished I joined him instead of drawing in my room. He wouldn't talk to many outside of me or the staff, and he gave me a pleasant goodbye when I left. C. Gay meth head. Probably smoked and fucked his brain away, leading him to the ward. He was always really talkative and loved the chat. We would smoke a lot of cigarettes together and talk about whatever. But as we got closer, we discussed poetry, and I asked him about his sexuality, which he spoke about really proudly, and it made me quite happy for him, but more so me. It gave me some pride and helped affirm my own sexuality and identity. A real deep guy. Probably talked too much for most people's liking. I thought I learned the most from him. Question mark 1. I don't remember his name, but he had some severe brain trauma from boxing. His brother killed himself some years prior and would often talk about seeing him in the room. Real clumsy and lumbering, due to his disorientation from the funky brain. Would piss the more sensitive guys off a lot of the time, for being pretty outspokenly racist or whatever. We had a moment where I challenged him. He would often put people on the spot uncomfortably, and I admitted why I was there, which was from a partner committing suicide, in response to him blurting out that his brother was there again, but I think I gained his respect in a weird way, where we suddenly had a connection/bond over our joined grief, and we got along, and he seemed more chill after that. Question mark 2. I can't remember his name, which is a real shame, because he was probably the better friend I made during that time. He was more full-blown schizo and would have some violent outbursts a lot, but he wasn't directed at anyone. We would sit, talk about video games, watch TikToks or daily dose of internet, which was quite nice. He was very innocent most of the time, and I enjoyed it. Almost every sentence or thing we'll talk about, if he wasn't focused, would include something about the sins, circles of hell, or just avarice. He would mask a lot of it in humor, so politely chuckling or just looking away at the floor would diffuse him. Sometimes I would misunderstand him, and he would get really jumpy and angry, almost lunging at me, but I would just let him work through it. I would understand most of his humor, and it was mostly about rebirth, or being puppeted from some divine creator. Some people didn't like it, but it was a riot to me. He gave me a solid handshake and a respectful goodbye, which I admired. I hope he's doing well. I'm glad I made an impression on him, as he did me. Question mark 3. Trans guy. Basically, an untransitioned little girl who had to be escorted all the time, and had guards on the bedroom 24/7. No one else had this treatment, but it was obviously because it was a men's ward, with a pre-transition trans man. They had severe, deep cuts just everywhere. From hands to shoulder and feet to hips. Everywhere that was exposed was scar tissue. Because of this, they walked with a walker, because they would hobble and limp basically from the damage. They would often compliment my outfit or shoes. And I even caught them drawing my shoes once, but because of the escort, it was hard to start conversation. We would have little moments of chatter, but almost all the time, they were screaming bloody murder. I mean, really screaming about how they hated living. It was hard to hear and deal with, and most nights, they were strapped down and sedated. Nice person, but in some pain. Actually interesting. Do you remember any more guys that just stuck out, but you maybe didn't interact with? Anyone especially nice or mean in the staff? Sure thing. I'm glad you're interested. Kay. This guy seemed the most intimidating to me, as he was pretty built. More built than me, which I'm not used to, and was completely covered with tattoos. Even the face was plastered with religious and Christian imagery. Seemed decent, but just got out of prison and seemed quick to turn to violence. But luckily, didn't in the ward. He also had a Glasgow smile across his face, like a Joker scar. But he was just a run-of-the-mill schizo, talked about voices and being told disturbing things, and he got out shortly after I came in. And through some friends who kept in touch with him, I found out that he attempted again shortly after. I hope he's found some peace, wherever he is. Question mark 4. This guy's a cool story, nothing unsettling though. He had one arm, the other was lost in some freak accident which I didn't pry or ask much about, as he did seem pretty shook up about it. It was a healed up stump, so it obviously wasn't too recent, but through chatting and playing chess with him, I found out that he was actually a local celebrity in my area, way back in the 80s and 90s. He traveled the country performing music and some comedy. He obviously had that real light-hearted positivity about it, which was really pleasant to be around. He showed me videos of him way back, and it was amusing to see his glittery suits and flashy guitars, and he never lost his funny edge. Good guy. One of the few who consistently beat me on the chessboard. Question mark staff member. The staff were mostly fine. There were a few exceptionally caring and loving to talk to, which was perfect. Most were apathetic and obviously treated it like a standard job. And one might as well have been an inpatient. He would mope around and look more depressed than the majority of the people there. And I would often hear staff talking about how he might as well go home or not be there, as it wasn't helping the situation at all. I would make nihilistic comments at the TV at times, which would make him laugh at least. Jay. Young side of 50. Silent 90% of the time. I sat next to him every day to watch TV, and ignore thoughts and observe going-ons. TV was the center of the ward. I got him to open up on my second to last day. Real dim type. Possibly intellectually challenged, but he would love to talk about push bikes and walking trails around where we lived. Seen him in a shop next to my place a month or two after, but decided not to engage with him. I wish I did. Nice guy. Question mark 5. This guy wouldn't acknowledge anyone else, apart from his wife, who would come and visit some days. But he became profoundly deaf as an adult and didn't cope with it at all. He would scream or just make odd moaning noises and frustration a lot. It was disturbing to hear as it rang through the whole ward, but that's about it really. He had a service dog which everyone longingly stared at, as we couldn't stroke it or anything. So it was amusing when that happened. Question mark 6. This guy was an Arab immigrant of some kind, but would pace around silently and glare at people all the time. It was scary at first, but once I realized he was harmless, he was fine. When he found out that he was leaving, he started opening up in his broken English, but he shared some of his Turkish coffee with some of the lads, and it was super delicious. I still tell people about it to this day. Last one. There's other guys who I was closer friends with, but they weren't out of the ordinary. And other people who wouldn't really do much of anything, so there's nothing to say there. A. This guy was the first person who welcomed me on the ward. He was a new arrival too, so we stayed talkative and mates throughout the stay. Like many of the homeless guys who got adopted onto the ward, he was a bad alcoholic and was real skeevy about it. He would sneak it on the ward and share it with the other winos, which did make me uncomfortable, but I didn't really care. He was a chronic liar and braggart, so eventually I would keep Stum around him, and giving him tobacco would keep him docile, but he got really brave about it by the end, asking for more, sharing it with people I wouldn't give any to, and etc., but I don't know. Just a regular scumbag who was even adamantly proud of beating his 7-year-old boy, which pissed me off real hard, but, I can't do shit about it. That's about it, really. I enjoyed my stay a whole lot, and gained some of the most valuable insight and mechanisms to help deal with life. And I haven't really been suicidal since. The day I got out was tough, as going from a wide support network to back living alone again was incredibly hard, but I believe the test of a person's worth is how they react when times are tough. So I buckle down, and I get on with things now. And I feel actually good about myself without the need of any external factors outside of some quality time in nature. I believe the things I experienced there are things most people should see firsthand, as it would make the greater society a much more accepting and non-judgmental place to be. I only wish I could be more descriptive and explanatory over my experiences and thoughts, as these words are a fraction of the feelings I have. I recommend anyone to create a smaller environment for themselves at home, as the reflection you experience is the greatest teacher of all.